Almost.
Okay, here we go. Jack gasped. Staring out at him from inside the ice was an eyeball about the size of a large marble.
But, okay, that is good.
The eyeball was white with a sparkling blue center. "Oh, man," whispered Jack. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" said Annie. And I know you guys don't want to see that picture again.
I want to. I don't want you to picture every. 2, 1.
I don't know about that. Jack felt a little queasy. Seeing an eye outside of a human head is too weird for him. "Put it away for now," he said. Annie put the hailstone back in her pocket. Jack looked around. The sky had brightened from pale pink to red. A thin sliver of the sun was peeking over the horizon. Remember, they have to get this back before
The break of day.
the break of day, which is when the sun rises.
When it's all the way up in the sky.
"The sun!" cried Jack. "Hurry!" He and Annie jumped out of the sleigh and charged towards the palace. When they got to the entrance, Annie stopped. "Look," she said, pointing to big paw prints in the snow. "Wolf tracks." "Oh, no," said Jack. "Do you think the white wolves are inside?" "That's weird." "It doesn't matter. We have to go in. Hurry," said Annie. They rushed into the palace just as the fiery ball of sun rose over the horizon. Chapter 8. Return of the Eye.
That's a bad name, Chaka.
Jack and Annie walked through the front hall of the palace, past the ice columns, and into the wizard's throne room. The walls and floors glittered with brilliant, cold light of dawn. "Uh-oh," said Jack. The wizard was waiting for them, and the 2 white wolves were sleeping on either side of his throne. Jack was confused. Why are they here? Do they belong to the wizard?
Yes.
The wolves lifted their heads and sniffed the air. Their ears pricked up. When they caught the sight of Jack and Annie, they sprang to their feet. They stared at them with their piercing yellow eyes.
Oh, wow, that actually.
The ice wizard was staring intently at Jack and Annie, too. "Well," he said, "did you bring back my eye?" "Yes," said Jack. Annie took the hailstone out of her pocket and held it up to the wizard. Jack watched the wolves nervously as the hailstone passed from Annie's small hand to the wizard's large, rough hand. The wizard stared down at the chunk of ice. Then he looked at Jack and Annie. "Indeed, you are heroes," he said breathlessly. "Not really," Jack murmured. The wizard looked again at the eye inside the hailstone, and then, with a quick movement, he slammed the ice chunk against the arm of his throne.
That's gotta smush his eye.
Jack and Annie gasped and stepped back. The wizard slammed the hailstone against his throne again. This time, the ice cracked. The wizard gently pried his eye out of the heart of the hailstone. He lifted the frozen eyeball into the air and studied it in the light. Then, with an eager cry, he ripped off his eye patch. Jack and Annie watched in amazement as the wizard fitted the eye into its dark, empty socket. Jack held his breath. He was horrified, yet fascinated. He couldn't imagine someone just shoving an eye back into their head.
Yeah, that's weird.
Ooh.
You can't just like take your eyeball out, put it in the hailstone, and when it's frozen, out.
And then crack it and then go.
And like you
And
just.
then you just have it in your hand and you just go.
The wizard slowly lowered his hand. He seemed to be holding his breath. He had 2 eyes, but the new one didn't move. It looked as if it was still frozen. Jack grew worried. If the eye didn't work, the wizard might not help them. We brought you your eye, he said, so can you tell us where Merlin and Morgan are now? The wizard jerked his head to look at Jack. He covered one eye with his hand. Then he covered the other. In a frenzy, he went back and forth, covering and uncovering each eye. Finally, the wizard dropped his hand and roared, "No!" The wizard's howl shook the ice columns. "You have tricked me!" "No, we haven't," said Annie. "This eye is useless," cried the wizard. "It has no life, no sight." "But that's the eye you gave the Norms. You promised if we brought it back, you would give us Merlin and Morgan." The two white wolves threw back their heads and howled. "No!" cried the wizard. "You tricked me! You tricked me!" "Let's get out of here," whispered Jack. He pulled Annie towards the ice columns. "Stop!" shouted the wizard. "You cannot escape me!" He grabbed Merlin's staff of strength. The wolves growled and yelped. The wizard pointed the staff at Jack and Annie. He started to say a spell. Wait, someone yelled. Teddy burst into the throne room. Wait, wait! The wizard held his staff in the air. He stared wildly at Teddy, his face twisted in rage. "We have something for you," Teddy shouted at the wizard. "Kathleen," he called. Kathleen stepped out from behind the ice columns. With her was a young woman with long braids. The woman wore a flowing dress. Around her shoulders was a white feathered cloak. Her eyes rested on the wizard, and a radiant smile spread over her face. She began walking slowly towards the throne. The wizard lowered Merlin's staff of strength. He stared back at the woman. All of the color drained from his face. For a long moment, he was as still as a statue. Then an ice blue tear leaked out of his frozen eye and ran down his white cheek. Jack and Annie stood with Kathleen and Teddy. They all watched the young woman and the ice wizard gaze silently at each other. "Is she his sister? The swan maiden," whispered Annie. "Yes," whispered Kathleen. The swan maiden spoke to the ice wizard in a strange language. Val even Owan. The wizard didn't answer. Tears flowed gently now from both eyes. "Val even Owan," the swan maiden said again. "What is she saying?" Jack asked. "She is saying, 'I have come back to forgive you,'" said Kathleen. The wizard stood up. He walked down the steps from his throne. He gently touched the swan maiden's face, as if to make sure she was real. Then he answered her softly in a strange language. "Velowan." "How did you find her?" Jack asked Teddy. "A seal took us under the ice to the Isle of the Swans," said Teddy. "When we found her, I told her how much the wizard missed her," said Kathleen. "I also told her about the two of you and how you always help each other. I told her she should return to her brother and be his friend again." The wizard and his sister kept speaking softly to each other in their strange language. Warm sunlight shimmered through the palace windows. Annie stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said. The wizard looked at her. "My sister has returned home," he said with wonder. "I can see with both eyes now. I can see perfectly." I'm glad, said Annie, but now you must give Merlin and Morgan back to us. The wizard looked at his sister. She nodded. The wizard held out Merlin's staff of strength. Use this to bring them back, he said. Hold it tightly and call out for them. He gave the staff to Annie. Annie could barely lift it by herself. Hold it with me, Jack, she said. Jack stepped forward and grabbed the magic staff. The smooth golden wood felt warm and vibrant in his hands. As they gripped the staff together, Annie threw back her head and called out, Merlin and Morgan, come back! A long burst of blue light shot out at the end of the staff and flashed towards the two white wolves.
What? They're the two white wolves.
Suddenly, wolf eyes changed into human eyes. Wolf noses changed into human noses. Wolf mouths changed into human's mouth. Wolf ears into human ears. The wolf's paws into human hands and feet. Wolf fur into long red cloaks. The two white wolves were gone, and a man and a woman stood in their place.
They keep getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter until they get big. Like people. That's how they get fat. Leo. So they eventually get this fat, and their heads are like this fat, and then they turn into people. I don't think so. Yeah, but they keep getting. They're about like this size. Fat, 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 fat. What if the fat stretched the whole this whole thing? And now it's just their head.
This is Franklin when he's 50. This is Franklin when he's 100.
This is Franklin when he's 2. And here's when he's 53. Just can't even see it.
This is Jordan's baby on Yeah, he looks like that.
Ew, you can all see your underwear. Oh wait, no, you're in your butt. It's disgusting.
Let's go first.
It's white. But then how come they were pawing them? That's weird. Paw. This is how you do a paw. Ow. Hi, paw. Ow. Leo, smack your face as hard as you can. No, I dare you to.
You dog.
I destroy you.
This is Franklin when
Just like
he's
this.
This is Franklin
If
when he's
I do it,
0 years old.
I'm not doing this.
This is Franklin
Or how about
when he is
a medium hand like this?
This is
I said medium.
Okay, 5,
2.
4, 3. Thank you. Chapter 9, Wisdom of the Heart. Merlin, Morgan, shouted Annie. Teddy and Kathleen cried out in amazement. Annie rushed to Morgan and hugged her. Jack was filled with giddy relief. Hi, he said, hi. Welcome back, sir, Teddy said to Merlin. Thank you, said Merlin. He looked at Jack and Annie. Thank you for turning us back into ourselves. We didn't know you and Morgan were the wolves, Annie said. We were following you so we could help you.
But then the wizard was wrong about they would eat them.
Just 3?
He's out. Miss Mary? Miss Mary? They just wanted to help. They didn't want to eat them, and the wizard would talk
Right.
about, like, they would eat them.
The wizard told us that if you caught up to us, you would eat us, said Jack. Really? Said Morgan. They all looked at the ice wizard. Standing with his sister, he stared guiltily at Morgan and Merlin. I feared that if they got too close to you, they might discover who you were, he said, but I will do no more harm, I promise, for I can see clearly now. The wizard looked back at his sister, and his blue eyes shined with joy. You can see because you have your heart back,
So his heart was taken out and stolen?
said Morgan. It's not only your eye that was missing, it was also your heart. We see with our hearts as well as our eyes. No, they didn't take his heart out. It
It took
No,
all the
okay.
joy out of it.
yes.
He always had a heart, but since the seeds of wisdom never grew in there,
Right.
it never made him happy.
And now perhaps you can find that wisdom you were seeking from the Norns, said Merlin. For wisdom is knowledge learned with the heart as well as the head. The ice wizard nodded. Please find it in your hearts to forgive me, he said. Use my sleigh to take you safely home. Yes, indeed. We must leave now, said Morgan. We have been gone from Camelot too long. The next time you come to Camelot, my friend, you must come as a guest, said Merlin, not as a thief in the night.
They're not thieves.
And you must bring your sister also, Morgan said to the wizard. I will indeed, the wizard said. Merlin looked at Jack and Annie, Teddy and Kathleen. Is everyone ready to leave now, he asked. Yes, sir, they all answered together. Merlin looked at the staff of strength in Jack's hand. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot, said Jack. He handed the heavy staff to Merlin. As soon as Merlin held the staff of strength, he seemed more powerful. Let us be off, he said briskly. Merlin and Morgan led the way out of the throne room. Their red cloaks billowed behind them. Teddy and Kathleen followed, and Jack and Annie hurried after them. Just before they left the room, Jack and Annie glanced back at the ice wizard and his swan sister. They were deep in conversation again. They haven't seen each other for years, Annie said. They must have a lot to talk about. Yeah, said Jack. He couldn't imagine not seeing Annie for years. Come on, let's go. He took her hand and pulled her out of the throne room, through the front hall, and into the cold dawn. Jack and Annie followed their 4 Camelot friends to the wizard's sleigh. Everyone climbed in. Annie sat at the rudder. Jack stood at the front. He pulled out the windstring and untied a knot. The sleigh rocked forward. He untied another, and the sleigh started moving very slowly. The sleigh was heavier than before, so Jack quickly untied 2 more knots. The sleigh bolted across the snow. Stand fast, said Teddy. As the sleigh swished through the dawn, Annie turned to Morgan and Merlin. I have a question, she said. Can you tell us what the giant looks like? The frost giant? Merlin smiled. There is no frost giant, he said. What? Said Kathleen and Teddy. Sure there is, said Annie. We heard his breathing. He nearly froze us to death, said Jack. At night, the wind often swirls through the hollow hill like a cyclone. You experienced one of those storms. But what about the Norns' story of giving the wizard eye to the frost giant as a gift, said Jack. Ancient people believe that the forces of nature are actually giants or monsters, said Morgan. The Norns are the last of their kind. They hold the idea that the frost giant is a living creature who haunts the hollow hill. In truth, the frost giant never accepted their gift because there is no frost giant.
they just did like their ancestors put it up there and never told them?
Jack shook his head. We believed what the Norns believed. They told us we'd freeze to death if we looked directly at the frost giant. And we believed what the wizard told us too, that the wolves would eat us if they caught up with us. People often try to convince us that the world is scarier than it truly is, said Morgan. Right now, the world didn't seem at all scary to Jack. Everything was calm and bright. Soft, rose-colored light was breaking through the morning clouds. Today is the first day of the winter solstice, said Morgan.
What's a solstice?
It's the first day of winter.
It's actually a solstice.
Winter solstice is the first day of winter. And
Right, it
summer
is.
solstice is the longest day of the year.
You mean the shortest?
Today the light starts to return. The days will grow longer. Jack turned to look at the sun. He caught sight of the treehouse sitting on top of a snowdrift, not far away. Jack tied a knot to the windstring. He tied 3 more, and the sleigh came to a stop at the foot of the snowdrift. Sure. Merlin looked at them.
Really?
On the winter solstice, you showed great courage, he said. You endured the storms and terror and extraordinary cold. You reunited with the Ice Wizard and the Swan Maiden. And perhaps most important, you retrieved my staff of strength. I thank you. Sure, Jack and Annie said modestly. You have done much for the kingdom of Camelot on your last 4 missions, Merlin said. On your next adventure, we will have a mission back in your world, in real time, not in the time of myths and magicians. We will call for you again soon, said Morgan. Great, said Annie. Jack and Annie climbed out of the sleigh. They looked back at Teddy and Kathleen. I hope you will help us with our next journey too, said Annie. If we all work together, we can do anything, Teddy said. Aye, said Jack and Annie together. Then they turned and trudged up the snowdrift. At the top, they climbed into the window of the treehouse. Once they were inside, they looked back. The sleigh was gone. Bye, Annie said softly. Jack picked up the small gray stone from the floor. He pointed at the words Frog Creek in the wizard's message. I wish we could go there, he said. The wind started to blow. It blew harder and harder. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Jack opened his eyes. They were back in the Frog Creek woods. No time at all had passed while they were gone. It was almost twilight. Snowflakes fell like tiny feathers outside the treehouse window. Annie shivered. I'm cold, she said. Here, take my scarf, said Jack, and he pulled off his scarf. No, you need it, said Annie. No, take it. I'll be okay. Jack put his scarf around Annie's neck. What will you tell Mom when she asks about your scarf, he said. I'll just tell her that the Sisters of Fate took it as a payment for telling us how to find the eye of the Ice Wizard in a hole in the hollow hill,
She's probably just gonna be like, what?
said Annie.
She's
Right,
gonna be
said Jack, laughing. We better get home before dark, said Annie. She started down the rope ladder. Jack followed her. As they stepped onto the ground, Jack remembered the windstring. He forgot to give this back, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the string. I guess Merlin's magic took the sleigh back to Camelot. Jack and Annie looked at the string for a moment. Untie a knot, Annie whispered. Jack took off his gloves and untied the knot. He held his breath and waited. Nothing happened.
But probably the sleigh still moved.
Yeah, the sleigh just like
He gave Annie a little smile. I guess in our world, it's just a piece of string, he said. Jack put the string back in his pocket. He and Annie started walking over the snowy ground between the trees. As they walked, Jack looked for Teddy and Kathleen's footprints, but they were completely gone. Annie and Jack moved out of the woods and down their street. They saw Christmas tree lights sparkling in people's houses and candles shining in the windows. Their boots squeaked as they crossed their snow-covered yard. When they got to the stairs of the porch, Jack stopped. He stared in astonishment. Annie's red woolen scarf was draped over the railing of the porch. I don't believe it, said Jack. I do, said Annie. They hurried up the stairs and Annie grabbed her scarf. Look, she said. She held the scarf up to show Jack. There was a tiny picture woven into it. A picture of him and Annie and two white wolves. Jack was speechless. Cool, huh? Said Annie. She gave Jack back his scarf and then she tied her scarf around her neck. She tucked the part with the picture under her jacket collar.
See? What? You missed me. Where is it?
I can't see from there.
Because he's looking
I think Jack,
This picture on the scarf.
Jack's head looks a little messed up. Well, it's
nice. Maybe it is. His head's just like pulled out like his cheeks getting pulled like this.
now.
Like, what's wrong?
Like his head is just that.
Or maybe like this. So he's putting his thumb in his mouth. He's just sucking on it.
No, I mean his neck is so short. Like his neck is so skinny. It's like
Our necks are like this big. This is how light our necks are. And this is how tall they are. That's how tall they are. And
do you know your neck can go all the way to Pluto and back?
what?
You know,
Ours, my neck would go all the
Yeah.
way to the moon and back. Then it'd be like, what? What'd you say?
You'd be
Because they
like,
would
my neck goes all the way to the moon. Like a boy.
Amos Ray.
Annie doesn't.
No?
I thought she would be like this.
In some of the stories, her picture shows her in pigtails.
Yeah, Jack's neck is messed up, Jesse. It's just so skinny.
Did you
It's
see
just
it?
like this.
Yeah.
Just
Okay, in 5,
what is his neck?
4, 3. Thank you. The front door opened. A delicious smell wafted out of the house. Hi, said their mom. The cookies are ready. Come inside and get warm. That is the end of this book.
Yeah.
What is the next one?
I don't get to see that with his eye ever again.
Yeah, I don't want to see it.
I want to kick the wizard. I want to rip the wizard's eyes out. Okay. They never got his eye back. They never got his eye back.
I would take the other wizard's eye and trade it to the non-disc.
5, 4, 3. So the next book is number 33. It's a Merlin mission. Carnival at Candlelight. Jack and Annie must go to Venice, Italy to save the Grand Lady of the Lagoon from a terrible disaster.
Is it?
They don't want to tell you that, because then they're gonna get the whole book away. Just like, okay, and buy the next one.
That's the Great Wall.
Okay, never. Next one.
Yeah,
Next
it's
one.
Italy is where the Great Wall. That's the Great Wall. Oh shit!